Welcome to your channel, Scream Alive. Today's story is titled, Someone's Outside the Screams of the Silent Forest. Lily and Mary, close friends since childhood, had been planning a camping trip to the Whispering Forest for months. The weather was beautiful, and the sun shone through the leaves of the trees, casting golden spots on the ground. The two girls felt refreshed and began their journey on foot, carrying their heavy bags on their backs. They walked for hours, enjoying the beautiful scenery and taking pictures. The two girls sat in silence, listening to the forest. The screams stopped, and a terrible silence fell. "Maybe it was an animal," said Mary, trying to calm herself. But her voice was trembling. Suddenly, they heard another sound. This time it wasn't a scream, but more like a heavy dragging sound on the ground, as if something huge was moving slowly. As dusk approached, they decided to pitch their tent near a small river that ran through the forest. Lily grabbed her phone and tried to call the police, but there was no signal. The two girls jumped and retreated to the far corner of the tent. The girls felt as if the air in the room had frozen. Then they saw something. On the canvas of the tent, a shadow began to appear as if rising from the ground. It was a huge, distorted shadow that stretched across the length of the tent. It had no definite shape, just a mass of absolute darkness. The scratching sound continued, and then they heard another sound. This time it was more like a whisper, as if it were coming from just outside the tent. The whisper was unclear, but it was frightening, as if it were not a human voice. Then the whisper began to change into a faint laugh, then into a hysterical, loud, and frightening laugh. Mary tried to turn on her flashlight, but the battery was dead. They were trapped in the darkness inside the tent, listening to the strange sounds coming from outside. The girls felt desperate. There was no escape. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise coming from outside the tent. It was like a scream, but it wasn't a human scream. It was a hollow, terrifying scream, as if it were coming from the depths of the earth. Then, the shadow suddenly disappeared. A terrible silence fell. The two girls didn't wait another moment. They ran out of the tent and sprinted as fast as they could toward their car. They didn't stop running until they reached the car, then sped away as fast as they could, leaving behind the forest of whispers and the sounds they would never forget. The dragging sound grew closer and clearer. It was like the sound of something huge being pulled across the ground. Then it stopped. The place was quiet and beautiful and seemed perfect for camping. The forest was famous for its breathtaking natural beauty, but it was also surrounded by many strange stories about hikers disappearing and mysterious sounds heard in the dead of night. The girls paid no attention to these stories and were excited to spend a fun weekend away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The stars had begun to appear in the sky, sparkling like jewels. "No, I didn't hear anything. Maybe it was just the wind," Leela thought. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But after a while, she heard the sound again. This time it was clearer and closer. It sounded like a faint scream followed by another, louder scream. Lily jumped up and woke Mary. "Mary, wake up. There's something outside." The atmosphere was magical, and there was no sign of danger. As time passed, it began to get cold, so they decided to go inside the tent. Before they fell asleep, they heard a faint sound coming from the forest. It was like a whisper, as if it were coming from far away. They packed their bags, a large amount of food and drink, and maps of the area, then set off in Lily's blue car. They arrived at the entrance to the forest at noon. After pitching the tent and lighting the campfire, the two girls sat talking and laughing as they ate. Lily looked at Mary. "Did you hear something?" she asked. Mary shook her head. Mary woke up, her face pale. "What happened?" she asked in a low voice. "There are sounds." "Screams," whispered Lily. The two girls were terrified. There was no longer any doubt that something strange was happening. Then they heard a soft sound coming from outside the tent. It sounded like a light scratching on the tent fabric. The two girls screamed at the same time. They were so scared that they couldn't stop screaming. Then the laughter suddenly stopped. A terrible silence fell. The shadow continued to rise slowly, as if trying to enter the tent. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel to receive all the latest updates.